unlimited drama series.
The confetti was still falling from the exploded inflatable when I realized I'd just declared war on people who never lose. Good thing I don't care about winning. I care about payback. My name is Luke Travers, and 30 seconds ago, I threw a cake knife at my cheating wife's lover, slammed her birthday cake into his smug face, and announced my divorce plans to 50 of the city's most influential people. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by the soft patter of metallic confetti hitting marble floors. Julia stood frozen, her designer dress splattered with chocolate frosting, her mouth hanging open like a broken marionette. Victor Leland, hedge fund prince and my wife's secret boyfriend, was wiping cake from his eyes, his perfectly styled hair now a disaster of vanilla and shame. "Luke," Julia whispered, her voice barely audible over the shocked murmurs of her family and friends. "What have you done?" I straightened my tie, picked up the safe key I'd thrown at her feet, and smiled. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. Consider this your gift. The truth." The whole thing had started 3 months ago when I'd installed security cameras in our house after a break-in scare. What I discovered wasn't burglars. It was my wife of 8 years, entertaining Victor in our bedroom while I was working late at my security consulting firm. But tonight wasn't about the affair. Tonight was about something much worse. "You're insane," Victor sputtered, cake dripping from his chin onto his $1,000 suit. "You can't just—" "Can't what?" I interrupted, stepping closer. The crowd pressed back, sensing the electricity in the air. "Can't expose the fact that you've been planning to frame me for domestic abuse? Can't reveal that you and my dear wife have been siphoning money from my business accounts? Or maybe I can't mention how you've been bribing Judge Weller to ensure the divorce goes your way?" Julia's face went white. Behind her, I saw her sister Sylvia and best friend Tara exchanging panicked glances. They were all in on it. Every last one of them. We never... Julia started, but I held up my hand. "Save it for your lawyer, Julia. You're going to need a good one." I turned to leave, but Victor grabbed my arm. Big mistake. My military training kicked in before my brain could stop it. I spun around, grabbed his wrist, and twisted just enough to make him yelp and release me. The crowd gasped. "Touch me again," I said quietly, "and I'll show everyone here exactly what 8 years in Army Special Forces taught me about handling bullies." Victor stumbled backward, cradling his wrist. "You're finished in this town, Travers. Finished." I laughed, actually laughed, because he had no idea what was coming. "Victor, buddy, I haven't even started." As I walked toward the door, I heard Julia calling after me, her voice cracking with desperation. "Luke, please, we can work this out. Don't do this." I paused at the threshold of the ballroom, looking back at the wreckage of confetti, cake, and broken relationships. "You know what, Julia? You're absolutely right. We can work this out. In court." The door slammed behind me with a satisfying thud. 3 days later, I was sitting in Maddie's bar, nursing a whiskey and planning my next move. The bar was a dive compared to the upscale restaurants Julia preferred, but it had 2 things going for it: cheap drinks and the best gossip network in the city. Maddie herself was a treasure, a 40-something ex-journalist who'd bought the bar after a messy divorce of her own. She had connections everywhere and a memory like a steel trap. "So," she said, sliding a fresh drink across the scarred wooden bar, "word is your wife's family is calling in every favor they have to destroy you." "Let them try." I took a sip of whiskey, savoring the burn. I've been preparing for this longer than they know. The truth was, I'd suspected something was wrong for months before I found the cameras. Julia had become distant, secretive, always whispering on phone calls and taking mysterious meetings. When I'd tried to access our joint accounts to pay some bills, I'd discovered that significant amounts had been transferred to accounts I didn't recognize. That's when I'd called my old Army buddy, Omar Hassan. Omar ran a private investigation firm downtown, staffed mostly by ex-military like ourselves. He was thorough, discreet, and had a talent for finding information that people preferred to keep hidden. "Luke!" Omar's voice boomed across the bar as he walked in, his massive frame filling the doorway. "Heard you caused quite a scene at the birthday party from hell." News travels fast. Faster when you assault the city's golden boy with a birthday cake. Omar slid onto the stool next to me, his dark eyes twinkling with amusement. Please tell me you got video. Better. I pulled out my phone and showed him a series of photographs. Security cameras at the estate caught everything, including the conversation Julia, Victor, and Tara had in the garden afterward. Omar whistled low. What did they say? They're accelerating their timeline. Julia's filing a restraining order tomorrow, claiming I've been abusive for months. Victor's already talked to 3 of my biggest clients, suggesting they might want to reconsider their contracts with someone so unstable. And Tara? She's the key to everything. I pulled up another photo, Tara handing Victor a USB drive. She's been embezzling from her family's charity foundation for 2 years. Victor's been helping her launder the money through offshore accounts. Maddie leaned across the bar, her eyes bright with interest. How much money are we talking about? Conservative estimate? 2.5 million. Omar choked on his beer. Holy shit, Luke. That's federal prison time. It gets better. I scrolled to another image. See this timestamp? This conversation happened 20 minutes after I left the party. Julia's telling them they need to frame me for the missing money, too. The bar fell quiet except for the low hum of the old refrigerator behind the bar. Maddie and Omar stared at the phone screen, processing what they were seeing. They're not just trying to divorce you, Omar said slowly. They're trying to destroy your entire life. Exactly. I finished my whiskey and stood up, which is why we're going to destroy theirs first. Over the next hour, I laid out my plan. It was elegant in its simplicity and brutal in its execution. Julia and her conspirators had made one critical mistake. They'd assumed I was the same trusting husband who'd ignored the warning signs for months. They were wrong. Phase 1 starts tonight, I told Omar as we left the bar. You still have contacts at the IRS? A few? Good. I need you to make some calls. Anonymous tip about suspicious financial activity involving the Hartwell Family Foundation. Omar grinned. I love it when you get devious. You haven't seen Devious yet. The next morning, I was in my home office when Julia's lawyer called. Richard Steinberg was old money, old school, and completely convinced that he could intimidate me into submission. Mr. Travers, his nasal voice dripped condescension through the phone. I'm calling to inform you that my client will be filing for divorce this afternoon. Given the circumstances of your recent outburst, I think it would be in everyone's best interest if we could reach an amicable settlement. Define amicable. You sign over half your business assets, agree to monthly spousal support of $15,000, and submit to anger management counseling. In return, Mrs. Travers won't press charges for assault. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped the phone. Assault? I threw cake, Richard. Last time I checked, that wasn't a felony. You also physically threatened Mr. Leland in front of 50 witnesses. I defended myself when he grabbed me. Also not a felony. I leaned back in my chair, enjoying this more than I should have. Tell you what, Richard. Why don't you and Julia come by my office this afternoon? I have a counter-proposal that might interest you. I don't think that's 3 o'clock. Don't be late. I hung up and immediately called Omar. It's showtime. My office was in a converted warehouse downtown, chosen specifically for its excellent security features and complete privacy. When Julia and Steinberg arrived that afternoon, they found me waiting in the conference room with a stack of documents and a laptop connected to a large wall-mounted monitor. Julia looked terrible. Her usually perfect makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes, and her hands were shaking slightly as she sat down across from me. Luke, she started, her voice softer than I'd heard it in months. I know things got out of hand the other night, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work... through our problems. Our problems? I interrupted. Julia, our problems include your affair with Victor, your plan to frame me for domestic abuse, and your conspiracy to steal money from my business. Which of those issues do you think counseling will address? Steinberg cleared his throat. My client denies any wrongdoing. These are serious accusations that... I clicked a button on my laptop. The wall monitor lit up with a crystal-clear video feed from the estate's garden. Julia, Victor, and Tara were clearly visible, and the audio was perfect. "We need to move faster." Victor's voice filled the room. "Luke's not as stupid as we thought. If he starts digging into the Foundation accounts—" "He won't," Tara interrupted. "The money trail leads back to him, remember? We made sure of that." "What about the domestic abuse angle?" Julia asked. "Already in motion," Victor replied. "I've got 3 people ready to testify that they've seen him lose his temper before. Combined with what happened at the party, it should be enough to get a restraining order." I paused the video and looked at Julia. Her face had gone completely white. "Anything you'd like to add?" I asked pleasantly. Steinberg was frantically scribbling notes. "Where did you get this? If you obtained it illegally. Security cameras on private property with the owner's full knowledge and consent. Completely legal." I clicked to another video file. This one's from 2 weeks ago. Julia and Victor in our bedroom, discussing how to access my offshore business accounts. "Stop," Julia whispered. Please stop." "Why? We're just getting to the good part." I opened a folder on the desktop labeled Financial Records. "See, while you 3 were planning my downfall, I was doing some investigating of my own. Turns out, the Hartwell Family Foundation has some very interesting financial irregularities." I pulled up a spreadsheet showing money transfers over the past 2 years. $2.5 million. Moved through 6 different shell companies before ending up in accounts controlled by Victor Leland. Tara's signature is on every transfer authorization. Steinberg leaned forward, studying the screen. "How did you obtain confidential foundation records?" "I didn't. These are bank records from accounts that my wife tried to tie to my business. When I had my forensic accountant trace the money flow, we discovered something fascinating." I clicked to another screen. "The Foundation's been reporting these transfers as legitimate charitable donations to overseas relief organizations. But the money never left the country. It just bounced around Victor's shell companies before landing in investment accounts." Julia was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks in black streaks. "Luke, I never meant for it to go this far. Victor said it was just temporary, that he'd pay it all back." "Shut up!" Victor's voice came from behind us. We all turned. Victor Leland stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 men in expensive suits. His face was calm, but his eyes were cold as winter. "Gentlemen," I said, standing slowly, "I don't recall inviting you to this meeting." "You didn't." Victor walked into the room like he owned it. "But when my lawyer told me what was happening here, I decided to join the conversation." "Your lawyer?" "Richard works for me, Luke. Has for the past 6 months. Everything Julia's done, every move she's made, has been on my instruction." The pieces clicked into place. Julia hadn't been the mastermind. She'd been the pawn. Victor had been using her to get access to my business, my accounts, my entire life. "You son of a bitch," I said quietly. Victor smiled. "Now, here's what's going to happen. You're going to delete those videos, destroy those financial records, and sign the divorce papers Richard prepared. In exchange, I won't have you arrested for industrial espionage." "Industrial espionage? Those bank records you obtained? They were acquired through illegal hacking. The videos? Recorded without consent in a private residence. I have enough evidence to put you away for 5 to 10 years. I looked at the 2 men flanking Victor. They had the look of private security, probably armed, definitely dangerous. "And if I refuse, then you'll have an unfortunate accident on your way home tonight." The room fell silent. Julia was staring at Victor in horror, finally realizing what kind of man she'd gotten involved with. Steinberg was studying his legal pad, like it contained the secrets of the universe. I sat back down and folded my hands on the table. "Victor," I said calmly, "you've made 2 critical mistakes." "Really? What's that?" "First, you assumed I came here alone." I pressed a button under the conference table. "Omar." The door burst open and Omar charged in, followed by 3 other men I recognized from his security firm. Victor's bodyguards reached for their weapons, but found themselves staring down the barrels of 4 pistols held by ex-Special Forces operators. "Hands where we can see them," Omar commanded. "Your second mistake," I continued, standing up again, "was threatening me in my own office. which is equipped with recording devices that are broadcasting this entire conversation live to the FBI field office downtown. Victor's face went pale. "You're bluffing." I walked to the window and pointed at the building across the street. "See the van with the tinted windows? That's Agent Sarah Chen and her team. They've been investigating financial irregularities at the Hartwell Foundation for 3 weeks, ever since someone sent them an anonymous tip." "This is entrapment," Steinberg protested. "No, Richard, this is justice." I turned back to Victor. "You see, while you were busy planning my destruction, I was busy documenting yours."
200 messages, deleted photos, a folder called Donald.
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
Every conversation, every financial transaction, every illegal threat. The FBI has enough evidence to charge you with embezzlement, money laundering, conspiracy, and now attempted extortion. Victor lunged at me, but Omar was faster. He grabbed Victor by the collar and slammed him against the wall. "Luke," Victor gasped, "we can make a deal. I'll return the money, disappear, never bother you again." Too late for that. I walked over to Julia, who was sobbing quietly in her chair. "You want to know the really sad part? If you just asked for a divorce, I would have given you half of everything. We could have ended this amicably." She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "I know you are, but sorry doesn't fix this." The FBI agents arrived 10 minutes later, led by Agent Chen, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who looked like she'd seen every kind of financial crime imaginable. "Mr. Travers," she said, shaking my hand, "thank you for your cooperation in this investigation. Thank you for believing me when I brought you the evidence." As Victor and Tara were led away in handcuffs, Victor turned back to me one last time. "This isn't over," he snarled. "Yes," I replied, "it is." 2 weeks later, I was back at Maddie's bar, celebrating the successful conclusion of what the local newspapers were calling the charity scandal of the decade. Victor Leland had been charged with embezzling $2.5 million from the Hartwell Family Foundation. Tara faced similar charges, plus conspiracy and fraud. Julie had agreed to cooperate with the FBI in exchange for immunity, but her reputation in the city was destroyed. "So what's next?" Maddie asked, refilling my whiskey glass. "You've got your business back, your wife's out of the picture, and the bad guys are in jail." Sounds like a happy ending to me. Not quite. I pulled out my phone and showed her a series of text messages. Victor made bail yesterday. He's been sending me these charming little notes. The messages were increasingly threatening, promising revenge for what I'd done to him. The latest one, sent just an hour ago, was particularly disturbing. "You destroyed my life. Now I'm going to destroy yours, starting with everyone you care about." Omar frowned as he read over my shoulder. "This guy doesn't know when to quit." "Apparently not." I pocketed the phone. "Which is why we're going to end this once and for all." "What do you have in mind?" I smiled. "Victor Leland thinks he's untouchable because he's rich and connected. Time to show him what happens when you threaten the wrong person." The plan I'd been developing was more complex than anything I'd attempted before, but Victor had forced my hand. He wasn't content to accept defeat and move on. He wanted to keep fighting. Fine. I'd give him a fight he'd never forget. "First, we need to isolate him," I explained to Omar as we walked back to my office. "Victor's power comes from his connections, his reputation, his money. Take those away and he's just another criminal waiting for trial. How do we do that? By giving his friends and business partners a very compelling reason to distance themselves from him." Over the next 3 days, I put the plan into motion. Using contacts from my security consulting business, I arranged for a series of carefully orchestrated leaks to hit the financial press. Stories about Victor's lavish spending while embezzling charity money, photos of him partying on his yacht while children went hungry, audio recordings of him bragging about manipulating the legal system. Each story was carefully sourced and legally bulletproof, but the cumulative effect was devastating. Victor's hedge fund fired him. His country club revoked his membership. His penthouse apartment was seized by federal marshals as part of the asset forfeiture proceedings. But I wasn't done. Phase 2, I told Omar on Thursday morning. Victor's still got one thing left. His pride. "What are you planning? Remember that yacht he's so proud of? The one he used to impress Julia? Omar grinned. Oh, this is going to be good. Victor's yacht, the Victorious, was moored at the city's most exclusive marina. It was his last remaining symbol of wealth and status, and he'd been living on it since losing his apartment. That Friday night, while Victor was at his lawyer's office trying to arrange another bail hearing, Omar and I paid the yacht a visit. We didn't break anything. We didn't steal anything. We just redecorated. By morning, the Victorious had been transformed. Bright red banners hung from the rigging, visible from half a mile away. Charity thief on one side, fraud on the other. The hull had been covered with waterproof decals, showing Victor's mugshot alongside photos of the children his stolen money was supposed to help. But the masterpiece was the figurehead we'd attached to the bow, a life-sized inflatable doll dressed in an orange prison jumpsuit with Victor's face printed on it. The marina was packed with weekend boaters and tourists by 10 a.m. Someone called the local news stations. By noon, helicopter footage of Victor's decorated yacht was being broadcast live on 3 different channels. Victor arrived at the marina around 1 p.m., accompanied by his lawyer and 2 new bodyguards. I was waiting for him at the dock, sitting on a bench with a cup of coffee and a newspaper. You, he snarled, pointing at me with a shaking finger. You did this. Did what? I looked around innocently. Oh, you mean the yacht? I think it's an improvement. Really brings out your personality. Take it down, now. Can't do that, Victor. See, the marina's public property. As long as those decorations don't violate any maritime safety regulations, and I checked they don't, they can stay up as long as the harbor master allows. How much did you pay him? Pay who? The harbor master? Nothing. Turns out he's got grandchildren who benefit from the charity programs you stole from. He's not feeling very cooperative where you're concerned. Victor's face was turning purple with rage. I'll sue you for harassment, for defamation, for what? Telling the truth? I stood up and stepped closer. Everything on those banners is a matter of public record. Your arrest, your charges, the money you stole. I'm just making sure people don't forget. One of his bodyguards moved forward, but I held up my hand. I wouldn't if I were you. I nodded toward the crowd of tourists taking pictures. A lot of witnesses here. Plus, I'm pretty sure assaulting someone in broad daylight would violate Victor's bail conditions. Victor looked around at the crowd, at the news cameras, at his ridiculous yacht floating behind him like a monument to his downfall. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked defeated. This isn't over, he said quietly. Yes, it is. I crumpled up my newspaper and tossed it in a nearby trash can. Your trial starts Monday. You're going to prison, Victor. Your money's gone, your friends have abandoned you, and your reputation is destroyed. It's over. I started to walk away, then turned back. Oh, and Victor? Next time you want to destroy someone's life, make sure they don't have friends in the special forces. Monday morning arrived with all the fanfare of a circus. Victor's trial had attracted national attention, partly because of the amount of money involved, but mostly because of the yacht incident. The courthouse steps were packed with reporters, protesters, and curious onlookers. I wasn't required to testify. The FBI had enough evidence without my testimony. But I wanted to be there for the verdict. Julia was testifying for the prosecution, part of her immunity deal. She looked different when she took the stand. Smaller somehow, like the weight of what she'd done had physically diminished her. Her voice was barely audible as she described how Victor had manipulated her into helping him access my business accounts and plan the frame-up. He told me Luke was having an affair, she said, tears streaming down her face. He said Luke was planning to divorce me and leave me with nothing. I was scared, and Victor offered to help me protect myself. How did he suggest you protect yourself? The prosecutor asked. He said we needed to get evidence of Luke's abusive behavior, maybe provoke him into losing his temper in public. Then I could file for divorce and claim half his assets as compensation for the abuse. Did you believe your husband was abusive? Julia was quiet for a long moment. No. Luke never hurt me, never even raised his voice to me. But Victor was so convincing, and I wanted to believe him because it made what we were doing seem justified. What about the financial fraud? Victor said the foundation money was just a loan, that he'd pay it back with interest after his next big investment. He made it sound like we were helping the charity by giving them better returns on their money. It was a compelling performance, and I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Victor's defense was less convincing. His lawyer tried to paint him as the victim of a vindictive ex-husband's elaborate revenge scheme, but the evidence was overwhelming. Financial records, recorded conversations, witness testimony. It all pointed to a systematic plan to defraud the charity and destroy my life in the process. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Victor's face went blank as the verdict was read. Embezzlement, money laundering, conspiracy, attempted extortion. 18 felony counts in total. The judge scheduled sentencing for the following week. As the courtroom emptied, Victor was led away in handcuffs. He caught my eye as he passed and mouthed something I couldn't quite make out. It looked like, "This isn't over," but it might have been, "I'm sorry." Either way, it didn't matter anymore. Julia approached me in the hallway outside the courtroom. "Luke," she said hesitantly, "I know you probably don't want to hear this, but I need to say it. I'm sorry for all of it. You didn't deserve what we did to you." I studied her face, looking for any sign of deception or manipulation. All I saw was genuine remorse and exhaustion. "I know you are," I said finally, "but sorry doesn't undo 8 years of marriage or erase what you put me through. I know, I wanted you to know that I realize now how wrong I was. Victor made me believe things about you that weren't true, but that's not an excuse. I should have trusted you. I should have talked to you instead of listening to him." "Yes, you should have." She nodded, tears starting again. "For what it's worth, I hope you find someone who deserves you, someone who won't be stupid enough to throw away what we had. Take care of yourself, Julia." She walked away and I realized I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no regret. Just emptiness, where 8 years of marriage used to be. Omar appeared at my elbow. "How are you holding up?" "I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. For the first time in months, I feel like I can breathe again." "So, what's next? Back to the security business?" "Eventually. But first, I think I'm going to take a vacation. Maybe go fishing, read some books, remember what it's like to live without constantly looking over my shoulder." "Sounds boring," I laughed. After the last few months, boring sounds perfect. We were walking down the courthouse steps when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Luke Travers." "Mr. Travers, this is Detective Martinez with the city police. I'm calling about Victor Leland." My stomach dropped. "What about him?" "He was found dead in his cell this morning. Apparent suicide. I'm sorry to have to tell you this over the phone, but we found your contact information in his personal effects." I stopped walking. "Suicide?" "Hanged himself with a bedsheet sometime during the night. Left a note apologizing to his family and the charity victims. No mention of you or any ongoing threats." "I see. Thank you for calling, Detective." I hung up and stared at the phone for a moment. "What is it?" Omar asked. "Victor's dead. Killed himself in jail last night." Omar was quiet for a moment. "How do you feel about that?" It was a good question. How did I feel? Relief? Satisfaction? Guilt? "I feel like it's finally over," I said. And it was. Victor Leland, the man who'd tried to destroy my life, was dead. Julia was facing the consequences of her choices. Tara was awaiting trial on her own charges. The people who'd betrayed me were gone from my life, and I was free to start over. 3 months later, I was sitting on the deck of a cabin I'd rented in the mountains, watching the sunset and thinking about the future. The security business was thriving. Apparently, surviving a high-profile revenge plot had enhanced my reputation rather than damaged it. Clients appreciated hiring someone who'd proven he could handle himself in a crisis. My phone rang. The caller ID showed Maddie's bar. "Luke, how's the vacation going?" "Good, Maddie, really good. What's up?" "Got someone here who wants to meet you. Says she heard about what you went through and wanted to buy you a drink." "Thanks, but I'm not really ready to start dating yet." "Who said anything about dating?" "She's a reporter working on a book about financial fraud. Thinks your story would make a great chapter. I considered this. A book deal could be lucrative, and it might help other people recognize the warning signs of financial manipulation. Tell her I'll be back in town next week. She can buy me that drink then. Will do. Hey, Luke? Yeah? I'm proud of you. What you did took guts. Thanks, Maddie. That means a lot. I hung up and went back to watching the sunset. Tomorrow, I'd start thinking about the future, the book deal, the business, maybe even dating again someday. But tonight, I was content to sit here and enjoy the peace I'd fought so hard to achieve. The war was over, and I'd won. Not through violence or illegal schemes, but through patience, intelligence, and the help of good friends. Victor Leland had tried to destroy me, but in